I started in my career about 17 years ago. Unfortunately, in the area of public relations and advertising, there are no role models for Asian Americans, so I had to find a role model. And fortunately, I was able to find a role model from Anheuser-Busch. The executive vice president there, who is Latino American, kind of took me under his wings and helped me get started. IW Group is originally called Imada, Wong, Park, and Benoit, and we were one of the very first agencies that specialized in multicultural marketing. In fact, when I started back in 1990, I had a Korean partner, a Chinese partner, and because of affirmative action, we had to have a white partner as well. So we had a Caucasian gentleman from Canada. So the company originally was called Imada, Wong, Park, and Benoit. So we had a Korean, Chinese, and French-Canadian partner. And our firm specializes in the multicultural markets, which are the fastest growing markets here in the United States. The competitive advantage is language capabilities. One thing that I always tell students that are going through college is to learn as much as possible about your native languages. Try to retain that. Try to learn as much as possible about other cultures. And since 90% of our employees are from other countries, they have that ability. They have the cultural experience, the language experience, the passion for their native countries that they bring with them, since the United States is a land of immigrants. To provide the best product and service available for its customers. We represent a number of Fortune 500 companies. Our largest client is Wal-Mart stores. We also represent McDonalds. We represent Nissan North America. We represent American Airlines, Farmers Insurance, Metropolitan Life. We represent a number of governmental agencies, including the National Office of Drug Control Policy, as well as foundations like the Christopher Reeve Foundation. Most of the staff is Asian American, but we also have Caucasians, African Americans, and Latinos that work for the firm. Because part of the mission of the firm as well is to be as diverse as possible. And we wouldn't be diverse if we didn't include people from other communities, such as the Latino, African American, and Caucasian communities. Absolutely. In fact, for the first 5 or 6 years, I could not get any funding at all. I represented a major bank in the United States, and although we did their public relations and the company trusted us with their PR, they didn't trust us with a loan. So it was very difficult for those first few years making ends meet because we couldn't get a bank loan. Well, first thing that I always tell people that want to become entrepreneurs is that they really have to have a support base. And a lot of times people don't have that support base, a very understanding spouse, parents, great business partners, or someone that's going to support you. The other thing that I think is really important is drive. If you don't have the drive, the ability, the time, the effort, and if you're not always thinking about being successful, then it's very difficult to be a successful entrepreneur. And I think for me, I thought about business morning, noon, and night. I walked into the office at 6:30 and often didn't leave the office until 10. I didn't worry about things like who's going to make photocopies. You did whatever was necessary to make that business successful. So some days I was crawling on the ground on my hands and knees, collating folders or running to the photocopy machine, or one of my business partners was at the bank making a deposit or running an errand. These are the types of things that you need to have as a successful entrepreneur. But most importantly is you have to have a mission and a vision. If you don't have that mission and vision, that's not going to be enough to help you guide yourself through a business. Absolutely not. In fact, I went to school. I learned finance, I learned marketing, I learned human resources, and once you get into the real world, a lot of those things sometimes don't necessarily apply. So a lot of times you need to be able to rely on a good university that's online perhaps, that you can tap into some resources occasionally. You need to be able to find mentors. You need to be able to find people that are successful in the business community to help you along, to teach you some of the things that you may not learn through a book. Human resources. Maintaining employees, finding the right employees, recruiting the right employees, keeping them motivated, keeping them engaged and happy. That's probably one of the most difficult things for an entrepreneur to do. An entrepreneur is so busy worrying about getting new business, servicing a client, finding the right finances to run your company. Sometimes it's difficult to manage the things like human resources. Absolutely. The very most important thing about customer service is under promise and over deliver. And always provide customers with something they don't expect. That's why I really like Costco so much. You go to Costco, you're shopping around through the stores, and you always find a surprise or a treasure. And I think that for customer service, under promise, deliver something that the customer doesn't expect, and always keep yourself relevant to that customer. Well, when you're talking to Fortune 500 companies, particularly American and Western companies, you get a lot of comments like, well, why should we target Asian Americans? Asian Americans are such a diverse population. They only represent 4% of the US population. So I've had to tell companies over and over again that the Asian American community is the fastest growing community in the country. It has high discretionary income, and it's also one of the most affluent communities in the country. But then I always get that pushback from corporations, well, it's only 4% of the US population. And I will always point back to Europe and say, are you marketing in a place like Europe? And a lot of these Fortune 500 companies say, absolutely, we market in Europe. And I say, well, pick any country in Europe that you're currently marketing to. And I was very lucky because this executive picked Belgium. And I said, are you doing any multicultural marketing in Belgium? And this executive said, I don't know where you're going with this, but absolutely. In fact, we market in French, we market in Flemish, we do a little bit of German and English because it's the seat of the European community. And I said, well, the Asian American population in the US is bigger than Belgium, is bigger than Austria, is bigger than Portugal, Denmark, Finland, Greece, and a whole host of other Western European countries. And of course, I got that executive's attention, and we've been able to retain that person as a client. So there's different ways to market your products and services. And if I were to give a message to students moving forward, is if you're an international student in particular, you probably already know that there are more than one way to get from point A to point B. There are multiple ways. And so if you don't get from point A to point B through that straight line, try a different way, because ultimately you'll get to point B. Absolutely. As an entrepreneur, I think we have a responsibility. And when that executive from Anheuser-Busch helped me more than 17 years ago, helped me become successful, I asked him one year after he retired, is there anything I can do for you? You've helped me for such a long time succeed in business. Surely there must be something that I can do to help you. And he told me the best way I can help him is by helping 10 other people. And I made it a goal to not just help 10 people, but to help 1,000 people. So as an entrepreneur, once you become successful, each of us have an obligation to help other people. Not just 10, not 100 people, not 1,000 people, but as many people as possible. So one of my key messages that I tell employees and to clients and other people that are going to the business, give back to the community, do something, make a difference. Well, actually, I've already achieved all my goals. In fact, when I got the company started, one of my goals was to actually sell the company, and I was able to sell 49% of the company to a company called True North. Ultimately, that company was bought out by Interpublic Group of companies, so 49% of my company is owned by a very large holding company. So I've already achieved a lot of my own personal goals. But what I'd like to see happen with the company in the future is perhaps expand into international markets, perhaps go into new markets such as Latin America and Africa, and perhaps do a little bit more in Asia. I think the biggest challenge that I had was trying to find partners and try to find the right partners. I think when you're an entrepreneur, you want to have people that are like you in the business. And I think that was a mistake for me. I picked people that were a lot like me, had the same work ethic, had the same ideas, the same thinking, and as a result, we had groupthink. And I think that's one way to destroy a company, is everyone completely thinks alike. So instead, what I did in the future was I picked people that were smarter than me, people that were better able to do things, more nimble, people that were better in finances or in marketing. And once you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, better than you in a lot of different ways, that helps you grow. So I think getting to that level was very, very important and a little difficult. I would definitely find another mentor, more than one mentor. I would definitely pick partners that would add value to things that I do currently that have strengths that I don't have. And I would definitely surround myself with people that will challenge me, that will question what I do, that will talk about issues and concerns that I may not be thinking about at that time. Over a beer. No, I like to have informal meetings. I typically walk around the office, sit in their office and have a conversation with them. I'll take them out to lunch. I'll socialize with them after work. Occasionally we'll do happy hour. I think that it's important to not only have a professional relationship with your employees and staff, but to have a personal relationship with them as well. Japanese clients always ask me to do all sorts of interesting things. And the things about Japanese clients, and I'm Japanese myself, is there's no real difference sometimes between a personal and a business relationship with Asian clients. And somebody described this very, very well. They said that Americans are a lot like peaches and Japanese and Asians are a lot like coconuts. And I was very puzzled by that analogy. And after I thought about it, I completely understood it. Americans are so easy to connect with, so it's very easy to get through that skin of a peach. So if I were to say, what's your favorite movie or what's your favorite food, an American will engage and say, well, I love pizza or I love Gone with the Wind, and we can make this small talk and immediately connect. But if I were to ask an American or most Westerners, tell me a little bit about what's happening in Bosnia, or tell me what is happening in Canada, our closest neighbor. Who's the prime minister? What's the capital of Canada? What are the primary issues that impact Mexico? Most Americans wouldn't be able to tell me that, and they turn into a peach pit. Japanese, on the other hand, are a lot like coconuts. It takes a long, long time to build that relationship and trust, but once you get through that very hard shell, you find liquid or putty, and they really throw themselves at you and become your friend, and they connect with you in very deep ways. So once I got to that connection with some of the Japanese companies, these Japanese companies would call me up and ask me to do things that most American companies wouldn't ask me to do. For instance, one of the Japanese companies said, what do I give to an American person for a wedding? And he called me up at 10:30 at night and asked me this question. I said, well, most Americans register at a store, and you can pick among the registry. And he said, well, can you do that? And can you please pick out a gift for me? And can you please have it wrapped? And can you please deliver it? Or they will call me up at 2:30 in the morning and tell me that they're having a personal crisis with their husband or their wife. And they would ask me to kind of counsel them. So not only am I involved in public relations and advertising, I'm also involved in human relations and counseling. So consider that a little unusual, but that's part of doing business in Asia. You have to make time for your personal life, your family, your significant others. You have to make time for yourself to go to the gym or play sports or take vacations. And I think that's the biggest mistake for an entrepreneur or business owner, is a lot of times that they don't make time for their families or for their personal life. And you have to do that. And ultimately, that's going to benefit not only your company and your staff, but your clients as well. Because if you don't take time off to renew, if you don't take time to engage with other people, then you're not going to be good to your clients in the long run. So I always tell people, make time in your schedule to do things that you need to do, that you enjoy doing. Every single day, I carve out an hour for myself. I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm out of the house by 6:30, and I go to my favorite restaurant down the street at 7 a.m. In fact, I'm usually the first customer there, and I devote 1 hour to planning out my day. And that is my own time. I don't have the phone ringing. I don't have to look at email. I don't have an employer or customer calling me. And so that's when I plan out my entire day. And I think you need to have that time in order to plan out a successful day. I always criticize the MBA community for a number of reasons, because I think some of the folks that are in MBA programs don't always learn life skills. So I'm always happy to hear about a company that's a little more internationally focused, because in a globalized world that we live in now, we can't use curriculum from universities and colleges that are just a brick and mortar. We have to be in an environment that changes and evolves. And that's why I like programs like this online learning program that you have, because the world doesn't communicate in traditional brick and mortar fashion anymore. They don't just rely on textbooks and lectures. People are on the move constantly, traveling, cutting business deals, moving. So I think when I look for an MBA program, I'm looking for a program that is ahead of the curve. And when I heard about your green program that you're going to be introducing in just a little while, I was impressed, because that's where the world is going. We're concerned about global issues, global warming, and we can't just be concerned about things that are taking place in the United States solely because the world doesn't revolve around the U.S. So to answer your question, I think with a very long answer, I look for an MBA candidate that's a little more worldly. I don't want a candidate that just graduated from a four-year institution and went right on to MBA school. I want a candidate that has a little more global thinking, that wants to outreach to the rest of the world, that isn't just confined to a country like Japan or China or England or the United States, but wants to broaden their skills, because those are the people that are ultimately going to succeed in a globalized world. Someone that has a sensitivity for global issues, someone that is well-traveled or wants to travel, someone that's ambitious and always thinks about other people and about where the world is going and how that person could play a role in impacting the world. Someone that is eager to learn through reading, through engaging with other people, through connecting with other companies, someone interested in partnership and social marketing, someone that's interested in not only themselves as a professional and professional growth, but the growth of others around them. That's important. I like to read business books and magazines. Even though we're in a very computerized, internet-friendly world, I love to read newspapers. So I read the Wall Street Journal cover to cover, the LA Times, New York Times. I like The Economist, Fortune magazine, and then I like to keep up with other magazines such as, The New Yorker. I love that. Vanity Fair. I read a lot of business books, and I think that's important. Gym. You go to the gym, you run, you play a little tennis, you work out and lift weights, and I think that that keeps your mind clear. My role model are my parents. My parents have always been my role models. I think for people living in the United States, a country that's predominantly immigrant, my parents, even though they were born in the States, they always worked really hard so that their children can succeed. And so I look at my parents as my role models. To work for a nonprofit organization. I think now that I've worked in the profit-making world, I think I'd like to work for the nonprofit world, perhaps go into teaching. I do a lot of public lectures and lectures around the country and around the world, and I think I want to pursue that. Always be curious, because I think curiosity is really important. And if you're curious about learning new things, if you're curious about learning about entrepreneurialism or learning about world issues, always ask. When you feel complacent, that's time when you need to shake yourself up. A lot of times business owners, they get complacent and they get very comfortable. And once you get too comfortable, that's the time when you need to rethink things and say, something needs to change. So shake things up a little bit. And also, think about other people. If you've learned something through schooling, maybe it's at Anaheim University or wherever you're going, whatever you learn, make sure you share that with other people, because information is very powerful. But it's only powerful if you share it with other people. So please share it.